Hello, everybody, and welcome to Forever Sports. And today we are going to look at three players who will officially become eligible to change nations this year and could choose to end any ambitions they have of playing for the Springboks, playing for Rassie Erasmus, and, for all intents and purposes, missing out on potentially winning World Cups based on recent years. And it's going to be interesting to see if the nations do indeed call up these players who eventually become available at a time during this year, and due to the basically new look sort of laws that World Rugby introduced a few years ago with regards to players and how they can eventually sort of gain nationality or gain residence in their nationality and basically be able to play for different nations, even if they've actually even represented certain nations after a certain amount of time has passed, if they have ancestral roots and the likes of that, or else they haven't represented their nation at a senior level and can potentially make a switch without having to worry about that. Before we get into it, please do smash a like on the video. Please do subscribe to the channel as well. Now, the first one's been quite well documented, and that is Benhard Janse van Rensburg, a player who's been absolutely scintillating in the Gallagher Prem in the last few years and has been one of the top performers, really. He's been an absolute stalwart for Bristol Bears. And I'm almost surprised that he's a player that hasn't actually featured for Springboks. Probably the big one really of the list, who I think could add value to the box. And it's been an interesting issue because they've had to go to court to try and find the eligibility regarding him, with regards to him being able to play for England as well. And they've had to sort of talk about the fact that he played for the Junior Springboks back in 2016, and at the time that kind of classified as the Springboks second side, therefore meaning that he was essentially captured, or basically had been capped nationally for South Africa. And basically World Rugby eventually had to apply an exemption in terms of what they deemed exceptional circumstances, which allows him now to transfer his basically allegiance, inverted commas, from South Africa and make him available for England. And we do expect to see him being called up for England this year. And why wouldn't you? I mean, he's been one of the top centres in the Prem. Centre, I think, is a position that England have changed quite a lot in the last few years, and maybe have sort of struggled to find someone to consistently play at the highest level. You're sort of seeing all of a sudden, for example, Tommy Freenham being used there, obviously Ollie Lawrence, but it's been a lot of different options over the years. And I mean, he's 28 years old, so I think from him, his Springbok dream is gone. You know, I think that if he had come back and he played in South Africa for the last couple of years, he might have been able to get a call up, but at the end of the day, he can't do much more in the Prem to get that Springbok call up. He can't really perform at a higher level because, I mean, he's making Prem teams of the season. He's getting, Player of the Month awards, the likes of that. He's been terrific, but he's still not being given that call up. He's still not been given that invite to the Springbok squad. So from his circumstance, you're probably sitting there going, well, you know what? I gave him my best. I've tried. I'm sure the Springboks was always his dream. But now you're sitting there thinking, well, if I'm ever going to play international rugby, it will be for England. And England obviously is looking at him as a genuine option. And I'll probably approach him saying, we value you. We want to be able to pick you. We think you're going to add lots of value. And it's not a case of, him abandoning South Africa. I think at the end of the day, he knows he's not going to get the call up. And he's going to go to a nation which is actively trying to recruit him. And I think where you sort of see somebody that appreciates your value, that wants you to come play for them, it becomes a bit of a non-brainer, really. I mean, this is the best opportunity for him to go to the next World Cup in 2027. And, I think he'll make a big difference to that England side. Another player who is potentially a change units is Rhyno Smith. Now, I think this would be quite an interesting one. Now, he's obviously gone over to play in Italy for the last few years. He's been absolutely brilliant for Benetton since he made the switch back in 2021. Obviously represented South Africa at the highest level in a sevens point of view, where he played for, I think, about 5 or 6 tournaments for the Blitzboks. He never really managed to make that big of an impact, I think, in the 15 scene in South Africa. Played for the Cheetahs, played a couple of seasons for the Sharks, but never was really a guaranteed starter, for example. He was always a very useful player in terms of being able to be quite versatile. But he's gone over to Benetton, he's really reignited that career, and he's been really, really good. And all of a sudden, he could potentially have the opportunity to play for the Azzurri. And after completing a 5-year residency this year, he could turn out for Italy. And I think he's somebody that will add value as well. Can play at fly half, can play at fullback, can play on the wing. Has got lots of experience at 32 years old. it wouldn't surprise me if they've already been in contact and basically sort of talking about the fact that he could play there. But he hasn't been invited to any sort of Italian training camps and the likes of that. But apparently they're having conversations about his eligibility, and sort of similar circumstance to Benhard Janse van Rensburg, probably have to potentially approach World Rugby and try and see if he can make him eligible. He'll be 34 at the next World Cup, so maybe not the sort of age profile that will excite them necessarily, but he could add value and becomes an interesting option. And the fact that they have had those conversations means that he's very much on the radar for Italy. And then finally, this one will hurt. It is Tyrone Green, who obviously took that sort of COVID route, left the Lions back into the 2021 season, and he moved over to London, where he's been brilliant for the Harlequins. And I think that if he had stayed, he would have been capped. I genuinely believe that had he stayed in South Africa, had he stayed at the Lions or made a move locally, I think he probably would have played for the Springboks by now. I think he's got the talent. I think he's got the skill set. He's got the work rate as well. He is a bit versatile player, can play at fullback and on the wing. 27 years old, though, he now has to make some big decisions in his career, because does he hold out for that Springbok call-up? He's played over 100 games for Harlequins, still hasn't gotten that call-up. Is he going to get the call-up? I don't think he is. I think that, where possible, the Springbok coaches do generally try to pick out of South Africa. A Quine Horn, for example, has been preferred. And I do think that he's not going to be picked for the Boks in the next year or two. I don't think he's on their radar. In terms of England, I think he very much is on their radar. And I think he's always wanted to play for the Springboks. And apparently even had conversation with Rassie Erasmus that him going over to England wouldn't hurt his Springbok chances. But I don't think he managed to play at the level he wants to as quickly as he wants to keep him in that Springbok frame. I think if you go over there and in that first season you're absolutely banging the door down, whilst you're kind of still relevant, whilst you're still on the coach's minds, you can potentially get that call-up. I think it's taken him a while to really adapt and be able to get to the level where all of a sudden you're going, maybe he should be in the Boks squad. But again, a big decision for him, because he probably can commit to England and potentially get a call-up this year, potentially go to the next World Cup. And then ends up, it ends a Springbok dream. And this is a player who played for the Junior Boks, and his dream was always to play for the Springboks. But at the end of the day, you also suddenly have to say, if it's never going to happen, do I then take another route to play international rugby, which is the pinnacle of the sport? So I think definitely one out of three who I think are probably good enough to play for the Boks. But again, this is the sort of the decision. I think this is maybe even a warning to younger players where you can get selected outside of, if you're in Europe, in the forms of a Jasper Wiese, a Bowen Venter. But it does definitely hinder your chances leaving. Because I think these are two out of three of these players, had they stayed here, probably would have gotten a call-up or been involved in the training camp or the likes of that. It hasn't worked out for them, though, and now they need to make the big call. Have we missed out on their players? What do you think? Let me know down in the comments below. Smash a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel as well. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Steve. I'll chat to you soon.